Adopting a flipped classroom model requires creating a new culture of learning. And like anything that disrupts the status quo, that change takes some time.
Here are some strategies to engage key stakeholders, including students, administrators, and parents.
So I once had a student say to me, "Mr. Sams, you just like this flipped classroom model because the students are doing all the work in class." And I said, yes, that's exactly why I like it. I want my students to be the most engaged participants in the learning process. I want their minds active. So if you start hearing from your students that this is hard and it's unlike anything I've ever experienced, that's a good sign. That's a sign that they're engaged and you're transferring that ownership to the students.
With those students, if you stick with it, they will learn to take more ownership for their learning.
A lot of teachers are often surprised that their administrators are excited about flipped classrooms already. They've read the articles, they've seen the emerging research indicating that flipped classrooms are a viable teaching strategy.
But if you have administrators who are a little hesitant about bringing a flipped classroom model into the school, then we have a couple of strategies that you could employ as you bring them into the conversation.
In fact, open and honest conversation is one of the great starting points with your administrators. Talk to them about how this will increase the student engagement in your classroom and be very communicative about some of the changes that you'll be making in your classroom as you start to adopt this.
Or just simply take them to a flipped class. There's nothing like seeing the flipped classroom in action. Parents generally love the flipped classroom model for two reasons. Number one, their student gets more individual attention from their teacher. Number two, the parent doesn't have to be the content expert at home anymore. That role stays with the teacher.
However, if you find yourself in a situation where some parents are reluctant to adopt an instructional model that's different than the one they grew up with, you could try teaching them about a flipped classroom using a flipped classroom approach. You could make a video for your back to school night or curriculum night or your open house in which you explain how the class works, and then the parents could view that ahead of time and bring questions to ask you when they show up.
What better way to teach parents about the flipped classroom model than to flip the back to school night?
So let's recap. Your students will probably love this, but if you get any resistance, remember that transferring the ownership of the learning to the students is worth it for them in the long run.
And if your administrators are hesitant, take them on a visit so they can see the flipped classroom in action.
And for your parents, teach them about the flipped classroom using the flipped classroom approach.
Remember, transforming a culture of learning takes time and support from everybody involved.